I'd like to call to order this Public Works Committee meeting for the City of Rapid City on Tuesday, September 26th. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. When you're ready.
Drew.
Here.
Solomon. Here. Modrick. Here. Roberts. Nordstrom. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is adoption of the agenda. Do I hear?
Move to adopt.
Second?
Nordstrom moves. Modrick seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted unanimously. Now is a time for general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the aldermen present. We have no public comment, so public comment is now closed. We'll move on now to consent items 1 through 11. We have no speaker requests, so public comment on items 1 through 11 is closed. So now we'll move to the committee and see if they'd like to remove any items. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you.
Item 11. Seeing no other lights, we move to approve with the exception of item 11. Moved by Solomon, second by Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. So we'll go on to item 11, and the chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to pull this out because it's an install sidewalk variance waiver, and we have that on our agendas often. And it's good to acknowledge when we are or aren't removing sidewalks, and I thought that this would be something that we would need to pull from consent so that we could acknowledge the fact that this particular sidewalk on Edwards is recommended to approve this variance by staff, and it is because of the conditions of the location of the sidewalk. So just to validate that of why we would be approving that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a motion?
I do not have a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Solomon, second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we're on to non-consent items 12 through 13. So public comment is open on items 12, 13. I do have 12 through 13. I have one request for items 13 through 15. Would you like to speak now, Mandy, or would you like to wait until we're at those items? Wait? Okay, thank you. So public comment is now closed. We'll go on to discussion by the committee members. Item 12. Oh, Jason Solomon, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to continue this item to City Council per the applicant's request.
Second.
Motion by Solomon to continue, second by Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Or excuse me, yeah, the item is approved. We'll continue it on October 2nd.
Oh.
Sure, Lisa.
Thank you. We may have passed something differently than we had planned. We wanted to move this item to council if we could. So if I could just ask the motion maker.
Yes, that was what I said. I didn't say October 22nd.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
next City Council meeting.
October 2nd is what I
October
said.
2nd,
Yeah.
yes.
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you for clarifying the date.
I think we're all good here, so we'll move on to items 13, 14, 15, kind of taken as a group by the speaker request. We'll go to council members first if they'd like to talk about any of these items, have questions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so are we ready to listen to the appellant on this particular issue?
If you'd like to do that first,
Okay,
that's
well,
fine.
Yes.
Okay.
We could please
Okay,
call them
Matt.
up here and maybe they can
Yeah.
state their name and
State your name and
respond to it.
address.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Thingolstead. I'm a PELS. I own Britton Engineering and Land Surveying. And I'm just going to talk about the exception that we requested to build the 12-inch water main from Winton Street down to Mondo. I have the flows that were provided by the city. We weren't intending on extending Anderson Road water line. The numbers that were given us was 900 gallons per minute at 50 psi with a velocity less than 12 feet per second. I believe they're asking for 1,000 gallons per minute to the subdivision. So just working some rough numbers out, if the 900 gallons is what the model projected for there, that's 5.7 feet per second. And to get to 1,100 gallons per minute more would require 6.39 feet per second. The cost to install that, I think Mandy has worked out the cost estimate to install that line. But we think it's a little bit onerous to make the developer pay for that extra line down Anderson Road to provide 100 gallons per minute extra.
Hi, I'm Mandy Schmier. And the extra cost to increase that water line from an 8-inch to the 12-inch it's about a $42,000 difference between the oversized cost. To install just the 12-inch line itself, you're looking at around $88,000 just for that. Would be an added expense to the developer for the 12-inch water line running down Anderson Road. Do you have some questions for me on this particular exception that we're requesting? I mean, it appears based off of the calculations that were given to us, we would be exceeding by putting in the 12-inch line, your gallons per minute would increase to 2,170 gallons per minute, and we're only required to have the 1,000 gallons per minute. So the 12-inch seems a little excessive.
Okay, I guess we do have some lights up here now, so please stand by for some questions. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mandy, as you had stated from the report that we have as well, that by putting the 12-inch loop in does take us out to 2,170 gallons per minute. And you're stating that there was the statement that you made, Mr. Engelstad, that said something about you would have a difference of only 100?
Yes.
Could you share that information for me?
Yes, I got a email from the city, and we were requesting the fire flows. Mm-hmm. They gave us three numbers. They gave us an unlooped 8-inch, which means it's the available fire flow in the subdivision without extending the line further south to Mondo. Mm-hmm. And I run a Hardy Cross analysis on it, and my numbers fall within reason to theirs. They gave us 900 gallons per minute without extending that line at all. Mm-hmm. Then for the 8-inch installation, it would be 1,900 gallons per minute, which exceeds 900 more of the 1,000. Mm-hmm. And for the 12-inch, the value was 2,170 gallons per minute.
Mm-hmm. If you could hold for me just a moment, Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Tack a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, and I know Ted's here as well, but Dale, just based on what he just said with the difference in, and not going up to the 12-inch, and he would still then meet the flow obligation, is that a reasonable statement made here?
Our criteria states that you have to have looped water mains, and that is regardless of what the fire flows are. That's why staff is recommending denial of not having a loop system. This subdivision is unique because it's in the county. However, it is city water and is city sewer that is provided out here. So for our system to be constructed and maintained properly, we're requiring that they build per our criteria.
And do we have any other developments that are outside of the city limits under the same conditions where we've run into this same situation where the costs are double what they, double that would provide some hardship, at least on financing here?
It's very unusual for a subdivision outside of the city limits to have city water. The city has recently acquired a water system located up on Radar Hill Road. Certainly there were issues with that. However, improvements were made to that system to make sure that they met city criteria.
So they brought it up to 12-inch at that time when they put the
Not
12
necessarily
in?
12-inch, but certainly there were improvements. I don't know the exact dimensions, but
So based on the improvement that they're stating, and they could, overkill at 2,100, it sounds like out in this area might be an awful lot of water flow on our per minute, although the criteria states that perhaps this particular development has an opportunity here to have an exception.
once again, the amount of fire flow is not what's being requested. It's to loop the water main, and that is to have a redundant system. So in the future, if there are issues with the water main, all of the residents out here aren't without water. If there's a water main break on the critical feed to this entire subdivision, they're all without water. If there's a loop involved, then they'll have water.
So if they do meet the loop obligation, then they would still be required at a 12-inch, or can they loop onto what's already existing?
The recommendation is for them to install a 12-inch water main. Our master plan shows that a 12-inch water main needs to be installed in this location to provide service to not only this area, but to future areas. It's always been development's responsibility to extend those facilities so the next person can tie on, just as other people have extended the water out here for their use as well.
And there's a map that you've got where it shows the whole development.
Yes,
Can you pull that up for me?
I would
And then I'll
like
yield
to
to my
include,
colleagues here.
though, that we have loops. We have a loop that runs down Zamia, along Winton, and would, with this development, would run down Reseda and back to Zamia. So that would make Block 4 looped, and Block 5 would be looped. That frontier of Block 6 would be included if it's looped off of Anderson Road. But it's those 7 or 8 lots, or 9 lots, I guess it is.
So we would be 9 lots short.
Right.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to let.
I mean, the feed, I understand what Dale's saying, honestly. The feed would come in on Winton, but to expect that extra expense for 6, 8, 9 lots, seems a little bit onerous to me.
Yeah, it would add about $8,000 a lot to your cost, wouldn't it? You'd have to forward that cost on.
At least.
Yeah. Thank you for the information and for answering the questions. Thank you, Dale.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Mayor, Thank you for the additional information on this, but I got to share with you, my concern is not only this development, but future development. If we have future development, and using your map that you have here presented, I see potential for additional development in this area. And so my major concern is when that happens, not only fire flow, but also adequate water supply to the residents in that area. And then in addition to having that closed loop system, we have that additional protection for the residents out in that area. Looking long range, that's my primary concern, is if we don't have that 12-inch line in there, we've got to come back and redo. And that's where I'm concerned about, is making that from, changing that from an 8-inch to a 12-inch line at some point in the future. When that is going to happen, I don't know that we've got any good crystal ball for that taking place, but let you know that's where my primary concern is at.
Sure.
And if you can address that particular point of future development in that area, or my major concern for that inadequate flow in that area and the closed loop, could you address that?
Yes.
We have intended to bring an 8-inch line along Mondo all the way over to Anderson, so that in the future, when it's brought down Anderson Road, it can be connected at that time, as soon as the development does occur further south or to the east.
Am I
So
correct?
I mean, we're looking forward to that connection being made at some point in time.
So I guess just to address that major concern is that we still are avoiding, or that's the wrong word, we're not putting in or installing a closed loop system in there. So if a water line break does occur, then how do we address the water needs for the rest of the residents?
I guess we don't until it happens,
Thank you.
but it is new system, I guess.
Thank you. I yield.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Make a motion to uphold staff's decision and reject this appeal, if I can get a second.
Second.
Motion by Solomon and a second by Nordstrom to uphold the staff's decision. Would you like to retain the floor? Okay, then we'll go ahead to a vote. Excuse me, I'd like to just ask a question, if I could, of, I guess Mandy might know this. Were you aware of, or did you understand the city requirements when you started the development?
Yes.
You were. So this isn't a surprise? You're just thinking that this is something you don't want to do because of the cost?
The cost is a factor. I think for the developer standpoint, coming down Anderson Road and increasing that water line from the 8-inch to a 12-inch is an overall construction burden for development burden. There is a 12-inch coming down from Southside Drive to Winton that's currently being installed. And then that 8-inch going over and serving the existing lots in Prairie Fire subdivision. But for us to run a new line down Anderson Road, and that line that runs down there right now is actually part of the Green Valley district. So now I don't know if that's how the city's because in the staff report, it did say that the city would consider the overcost expense for upsizing this water line. So, we're looking at that. Do we need to now contact the Green Valley and approach them for the oversized line? Dale might be able to.
Okay, the chair recognizes Dale Tech.
There is an existing Green Valley water main, but it has nothing to do with this water system. This is purely a city water system that we're talking about. Mandy is correct that the city would certainly consider a request for oversizing to go from 8-inch to 12-inch cost on this. We would negotiate that. But the Green Valley water main has no bearing on what we're doing here. It's going to be a separate city-owned system. They've got their boundaries that they work in. We've got our boundaries that we're working in. We may have water mains in the same area, but in this instance, we're supplying the water for this subdivision, and it has no bearing on the Green Valley water system.
As one of our main charges here as council and as this committee, we are responsible for safety concerns and health concerns of the people in the city, and water is certainly one of those things. Seeing how you knew this was a possible request that you would have, I don't know if I can support right now. I think I'm leaning towards the denial of this appeal. So we go back to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I understood it correctly from Dale, that the oversized reimbursement, or I'm not sure how we call that, we will work with them in order to come up. I mean, we understand it's kind of fits this in between area. I understand. So the fact that it's a little bigger than obviously they want to do, but we have to think long term. So you will work with the applicant on this particular oversight.
Absolutely. Our documentation that is attached to the agenda indicates that we
Yeah,
will
and
do
I
that
read,
as well.
and I did read that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and obviously take advantage of that as well. And so with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Right now, the motion on the floor is to deny the appeal. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. We have, do a roll call. That seems to be the way we're doing things now.
Drew,
Aye.
Solomon, Modrick, Roberts, Nordstrom. Passes 4-1.
Thank you, Brenda. So we've denied the appeal here. This doesn't mean you're done. You know, you can come back and talk to City Council on Monday night and state your case again. They have the final decision. Thank you. Okay. All right. We're on to item 14. Okay. Appeal of denied exception request by Prairie Valley Development Company, LLC, to waive the requirement to construct curb, gutter, and sidewalks in Reseda and Abella Streets. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the motion that I'm going to be making is to uphold staff's decision to deny this exception. And if I get a second, I'll continue.
Nordstrom moves to deny the appeal, and Solomon seconds for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Primarily on this, Mandy, is that what I'm looking for is, as is previously expressed, is safety and the water management that we'll have to deal with as far as storm events coming through. What do we do with the snow? What do we do with a high volume of rainwater coming through? How do we address that issue rather than just letting the water erode into the ditches? And so that's why I'm in support of the curb and gutters, and then including the sidewalks. I do believe that we're going to be seeing more and more walkability within the city, as well as the citizens being interested in taking the walks around their community. So what I'm trying to say is that we'd like to keep the citizens off the streets and on safe conditions so that they don't have to encounter traffic in that area. So that's the reason, primarily reasons why I'm supporting staff on this decision. So anything else you would like to add on to that?
Yes. If I could, we do have some pictures to show of the surrounding subdivision.
Please.
And Dale had alluded to this earlier, that this is a unique area. It is within the county's jurisdiction. However, it's within the city's 3-mile plating jurisdiction. This property is currently zoned a planned unit development with a minimum lot size of a ½ acre for each lot. The county's got that jurisdiction over the uses and the minimum lot size requirement. So we're not gonna see any future subdivision, these lots getting any smaller without having to go to the county and basically amend that PUD. The purpose, I'm just gonna go this way. So currently out here, the first phase of Prairie Fire was platted back in 2007. The phase 1, consists of no sidewalks, no curb, gutter, within this development. The closest sidewalks that we're gonna see within this area is gonna be on the north side of Highway 44 and Murphy Ranch Estates. Green Valley Estates has no curb, gutter, sidewalks. So for the developer, who I am representing, to install this, the sidewalks, there's really gonna be the sidewalks are gonna really point to no direction. They're not gonna serve anybody within the existing phase 1 or within the surrounding subdivisions. It's just gonna be basically a walk around for this phase 2. And then there is a detention pond that was sized for this overall development, both phases 1 and 2, when this project came forth in 2006. So the stormwater is all designed to go towards this detention pond that's sized for this overall development.
Thank you, Mandy. Just to give you a perspective, what my understanding is that forgive me if the name of the development just north of this is the Green
Valley.
Green Valley. And that was developed way before any of these requirements were installed. If I'm incorrect, somebody restate it for me. But we did not have any control at that at that time. My understanding is we, the city, did not have any control over that installation of sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. So what we have to do, in my opinion, is to bring forward some minimum standards so that we have adequate, as I stated earlier, is adequate control over storm events and then a safe area for people to walk. So, but I just wanted to point it out. That's the difference between the Green Valley and this development.
And I understand what your concerns. And had we been coming in with phase 1 of Prairie Fire, with the original 30-some lots that are within phase 1, I would understand and why we would have the need for curb and gutter and sidewalks for phase 1. But we're coming in at phase 2, where these sidewalks are not going to connect to phase 1. So we're going to go from basically the end of Mondo Street or the end of Reseda Street with the sidewalk into basically just a ditch line. So we're looking at, a transition from a ditch to a sidewalk that is only going to serve these proposed 40 lots.
And again, for me, it has to do with additional or future development
Sure.
in this area. And I just got to say that my major concern in the overall development of this area in general is that it's starting to encroach upon near or getting close to the wastewater treatment plant. So that's a whole nother topic, but I'm very concerned about that encroachment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes John Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I want to talk to you, the engineer, or the developer, or all of you. I don't have the same concerns that my colleague, Mr. Nordstrom, has. People buy homes like this out in the country because they want to be in the country. But I do have some questions about the cost, because your drainage right now is in place. If we all of a sudden install sidewalks, curbs, gutters, we change your drainage completely, and you have to completely redo your drainage. So have you looked at any of the costs that it will be to completely change the subdivision that way?
There is some history here. The subdivision phase 1 was done in 2005. It was submitted to the city, a full set of plans. Every lot in Phase 1 and what is Phase 2 was included in that. It was approved and sent to DNR for approval. We sized a detention pond in the northwest corner of the subdivision to handle all of the runoff from the subdivision, and it was designed for a culvert ditch section.
Yes.
So, by changing that, it means some extra structures to connect those ditches to the curb and gutter and making that transition, obviously with that impervious area from the street, we're gonna have some erosion issues, sediment. We have long runs in the ditches that will take out the sediment and works for the initial storm treatment, which can also be facilitated in the drainage pond. So those were all thought out at the initial time of that platting.
Yes. Well,
But
and
the
I,
cost, I haven't done any more work. I'm trying to keep my cost down until I know which way to proceed.
well, absolutely. And I see with these costs being put into these lots because of the size of the lots and what the price point is going to be on these lots, I have some concern that it will be feasible to sell the lots by putting this much cost in. And that worries me. You know, and like I said, people buy lots like this because they want to be in the country. These are half-acre lots. You're not putting a lot of homes out there. It's not like we're doing a subdivision in town where we're putting, 10 homes on 1 acre. So, you have 2 homes per acre. You're going to have people, they might be out walking, but they can walk in the street, they can walk in the grass, they can walk, I see that all the time in the older parts of Rapid Valley where there's no sidewalks and the people are still out walking and riding their bikes and there are very few people in these subdivisions because of the size of the lots. So I don't believe that this is a model to put in curb and gutter and sidewalks and all of that just because we can. I don't think that it's good for the consumer. I don't think it's good for development, and I don't think it's good for a neighborhood like this. Because I think people buy these homes because they want to be out in the country. So anyway, thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon. She talked.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe Alderwoman Modrick wants to go last, I suspect. May I ask a question to Dale Tech, please? Dale, one point that the applicants make on this that I think is worth discussing is the current system, the runoff system, and how it's designed, and would doing this be an undue hindrance, I guess, to what they currently have in place, considering the whole Phase 1 and everything else?
As Mr. Thingolstead stated, there would be some adjustments needed from where the curb and gutter ended to transition into a ditch section. The thing about this subdivision is it drains from south to north, so most of the infrastructure that's in place to the north is a ditch section. So that works well with curb and gutter being built to the south. It can drain from the curb and gutter into the ditch section. If it was the other way around, it would be about impossible to do, to go from a ditch section into a curb and gutter section. So in this instance, that isn't the case. One of the dilemmas that we have here is the next item talks about the right-of-way width. And what they're requesting is a reduction in the right-of-way width. Our criteria doesn't have anything for rural road sections. For that drainage to work properly, you need to have the adequate ditch section along the road, but you also need to have some sort of protection in place that people won't just fill that in. So if the right-of-way is too narrow, there's opportunity that the adjoining owners will fill that ditch section in or put something in it that will restrict the water flow. They've indicated that there's going to be 15-foot easements on both sides of the road. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily protect the drainage there. People can still do certain things in that easement area that could negatively impact the stormwater runoff. So this is an issue that is kind of twofold. It's the road section and then actual width of what there is there for it to function properly.
Do we have an example of other areas just outside of city limits that we have made these requirements of, and how that's working out, if we have?
Nothing comes to mind. If you look north of here, there were some developments on North Radar Hill Road. There's 2 subdivisions up there. They have similar names. I can't recall. Valley View and Valley Heights Estates, I believe, is what they're called. All built with rural road sections, and I believe the folks in Valley Heights are having issues with stormwater drainage due to the fact that there's nobody maintaining other than the property owners, and the property owners that choose not to maintain. It's been a problem up there for them.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm wrestling with this one. The water was pretty cut and dry for me. This one's not so much, because I can understand, I think Alderman Roberts is right. I mean, these are.
One thing, if I could add,
Yeah.
I mean, certainly they had years ago an overall development plan here that showed it being all developed this way. To remain consistent would make some sense. However, you know, it's been over a decade since this was originally planned out and thought out, so things change from time to time. Our criteria has been updated to reflect a better section, if you will, for these types of facilities.
Do we have any sort of measurement, excuse me, or quality check or whatever the case may be, that the water runoff that is currently in place is adequate for the needs of this development?
We're going to assume that the previous drainage study is still correct and still accurate. Based on the development that's occurred out there, they haven't made any changes to it, so it should still be adequate. I don't know that we've received any drainage information. I've got Ted Johnson here, maybe can answer that or give me a nod that. Perhaps Mr. Thingelstead could. I don't know if he's updated the drainage or if it's from the previous study that he did.
Well, I had a drainage report in 2005. I haven't updated anything, but you have to understand, I'm trying to keep my costs down as much as I can until we can proceed with a logical approach to this. So I haven't updated it, but it was designed to work with ditch sections, culverts, and ran into a metered detention pond.
All right, so.
And it,
Sir.
as far as I know, it's worked. I haven't had any complaints, and I do get complaints when things don't work, so.
My question is, so this next phase, is what's currently in place and how you have that water runoff set up, is that adequate to deal with the additional capacity?
It was originally designed for all of the lots. We submitted that set of plans originally, then the previous owner said, I only want to build phase 1. So we removed that intersection that we're talking about now.
Okay.
But the detention pond and all of the drainage was set up with the entire subdivision plan at that time. And I do have the numbers that I've used, which are the same that we use right now, with considering rationales, methods, detention pond, storage capabilities, metering the flow. That's exactly what we did.
Okay,
So.
thank you. I'll yield. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the facts that we've had both in discussion as well as what we've got in our reports and our links, I find that I can accept Prairie Valley Development's request to appeal this, because as stated even in our documentation that we have, and it was just reconfirmed by Mr. Engelstad, that this had been the improvements had been accepted again by the city in 2009. So we're, that's only 8 years ago. We did have a criteria manual change, but this is a rural area. And as we can see by the pictures, or if you drive out there, that rural is going to, it's going to stay rural. It's not designed to be a Pleasantville design of a city. It's definitely where, when you want space and you want to have this kind of living, this is the perfect place to go. And that is desirable amongst those that are going to make their purchases in this development. And if we create curb and gutters to nowhere from within a surrounding development, then we've placed something out of place of what was the plan in 2005, 7, and 9, as we're showing in here. I believe that we've got the easy infrastructure in place with the ditching, and I think that this is an easy acceptance to allow Prairie Valley Development to not have those additional and very expensive costs of curb and gutter and sidewalks in a rural area. I might ask Mandy, if I could, since you're there, what is the traffic in this development now, and then as Phase 2 comes in?
Traffic, most of the access to this Phase 1 takes access off of South Side Drive. So, I mean, it's just your 1-2 car per residence, in and out. And
It's not a thoroughfare.
it's not a thoroughfare, no, not by any means. And, you know, and some of the homes out here are vacant. We see houses out here for sale, and, you know, it's a good starter, first-time home buyer opportunity out here for these guys. And the developer, you know, we're trying to keep the cost low so we can help those that are looking for their first-time home buying opportunities, and cost-wise per lot.
And we don't have enough of that. We
We
need
don't.
more.
We do.
So I appreciate that the investment is being carried forward, and that Phase 2 has an opportunity to get complete so we can house more people that are in workforce or starter homes, or
Right.
even want to downsize or retire or want more space. And that's what I see in this rural area. So I agree with the appeal for Prairie Valley based on the conversations that we've had and all the research that we have as far as what's in front of us as well. So I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope I'm not beating a dead horse, but Mandy, would you bring up that picture again that shows the Anderson Road roadside sign? Yes, that's the one. Have you got a plan in place for any road maintenance for this area? Is there a road district? How does that work? What's the road maintenance look like?
There is a road district out in this subdivision currently. So they maintain the streets within the existing Phase 1.
And the future property owners will know about this?
Will know about this, and
Yep.
he will, the developer will, you know, tie into the existing road district. And
This picture really points out my major concern, as far as in my opinion again, is that, as you can see, maybe it's some other material that's out there in the middle of that curve, that elbow, the end part of that. But from my perspective, it looks like the asphalt is starting to tear up and starting to slough off. So that's why I'm very interested in having the curb and gutter, because that's only going to add to your maintenance costs without the road curb and gutter. So that's my major concern, is for the future maintenance of this area, just using this as an example.
And I should clarify, this is not within Prairie Fire subdivision. This was just to give you an
Okay.
this is the subdivision on the north side. Just to show you guys that, you know, the consistency out there of what we're requesting is the ditch and slope, back slope. There's no curb and gutter that we see out here in this area. I would like to point out too,
Please.
I'm gonna back up here, and I know that there's been talk about future development and, you know, stuff that we can potentially see coming forward. But right now, if we look at this zoning map right now, we see that so the property that we're talking about is in blue. And the surrounding properties right now are all zoned general ag, minus the subdivisions to the north that are zoned suburban residential. So as far as being zoned general ag, those require a 40-acre minimum lot size requirement unless they were platted prior to 1982. So you guys are going to have the opportunity, if somebody were to come in the future and look at platting lots to the west or to the east, you know, to look at as far as future development goes, you know, with the 40-acre minimum lot size requirement, you're going to have the opportunity to again look at this area for any sort of future developments to come forth. It's not like we're going to see, you know, we don't see suburban residential lots to the west of this property where they have a smaller minimum lot size requirement, where it would make more sense to, you know, if this was located closer to the city limits, to require the curb and gutter and the sidewalks in that instance, where you might have, you know, smaller than a half-acre lot. We are limited to, because of this PUD, for just half-acre lot sizes. We're not going to see anything more smaller in this Prairie Fire subdivision as it's platted right now.
Thank you. Point well taken. I'm just concerned about future maintenance and the expense of it. So I believe that if the owners understand, the future property owners totally understand what the road maintenance costs are going to take place and how that's going to be affected without curb and gutter, they might have a different opinion. But anyway, that's their call then at that point. Thank you. I'll yield.
Thank you, everyone. This has been a good discussion. I'd just like to add a few points if I could. The new model in subdivision development and design calls for the ditch over pavement. Just because pavement is forever, you can't really undo that. Well, you can. It'd be very expensive. But the idea of letting nature take its course and the grasses filter the water, and it goes back into the ground. It doesn't go into, you know, something that we predestine that the water's going to go towards and in, that we actually just let water go into the ground. I know it doesn't sound too controversial, but I guess it is. So I will be supporting your appeal in this particular instance. Chair recognizes John Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just kind of want to reiterate that point. I mean, when we have the opportunity to do this kind of drainage, I think it's very eco-friendly to do it. And not only is it that, but it saves the developers some cost, which makes homes more affordable, which is something we've been talking about ever since I've been on the city council. You know, we're always talking about affordability, but we sit on this council and we you know, of course we have to listen to staff because of what is brought forward. That's their job to bring forward the design criteria manual. But we have the opportunity to actually help the affordability of homes in Rapid City. And I think we should, when we have the opportunity, to take advantage of that. And this is a little unique out there because of the fact of the size of the lots and because, you know, it's a second phase of a subdivision. And, you know, and if this was, say, a 40-acre new subdivision and they were going to be on, you know, 0.8 acre, 0.10, 0.12 acre lots, so we're getting a little bit of density in that subdivision, I still may not recommend to have sidewalks and to have drainage and to have curb and gutter. I looked at a subdivision in Colorado a few months back, a brand new subdivision that was going green like this and eliminating some of that stuff because not only does it help eliminate some of that cost, but it is eco-friendly. So, and what they do is they put their walking trails and stuff within the subdivision. They have more open space, but they eliminate some of these hard costs in there. And, you know, as things get more expensive, like concrete and lumber and, you know, all the things that it takes to build a new home, I think it's kind of our responsibility to look at ways to work with the developers and work with the builders so we can help, you know, possibly bring some of those costs down. So anyway, I'll be voting against what's on the table right now.
I see no more lights. The motion on the floor is to uphold the denial by staff. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Okay, so we have 4-1 with Richie Nordstrom voting aye. We go on to item 15. What? Okay, excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry, Lisa. We go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you. With that denial, I just want to make sure that that creates the appeal request to Prairie Valley Development with the denial, or do we need to actually make an official motion now to accept? Is it, because we've got
Accept the
no
denial.
decision to accept it, we've just got a motion to deny it, or does that cover us enough?
Well, let's go to Joel Lending.
Thank you.
What was the question?
Hi, Joel. We just denied the first motion, which was to accept the staff's recommendation to deny the exception. Do we need another motion on top of that to allow them to move forward, or will that just allow it to finish when it goes to council on Monday? Do we need
No,
a
staff
recommendation?
denied the exception, so I think you have to approve the appeal.
So that it
Okay.
goes to council with a recommendation from this council, if we so move that.
Yeah,
Okay.
goes to council, that would be correct. It would go to council with the recommendation to grant the appeal.
So no motion needed until Monday?
No, we don't need.
Okay.
you.
All right, we can continue. Thank you, Lisa. Alderwoman Modrick. Let's see. On to item 15. Appeal of denied exception request by Prairie Valley Development Company, LLC, to waive the requirements to dedicate 52 feet of right-of-way in Reseda and Abilene Streets. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you. If I could ask Dale a question.
Of course.
Dale, so this is a perfect opportunity to pick up where you left off when you had mentioned 15, and you stated at that point that that you're concerned with the 15-foot right-of-way that they're expecting to place on this is not going to guarantee the right-of-way that you feel is necessary by changing this by the short terms that they need it changed to? Because they'd like to keep it as it is, but you want to use well, you said there is no criteria particularly, it's 52 feet, but not in rural sections. So it's your recommendation that they move this to 52 feet?
Staff's recommendation is to not reduce the right-of-way width.
Okay.
They're requesting to reduce it from 52 to 49 feet. So you can take that for what it's worth. It's only a 1.5 feet on both sides of the road. However, with the ditch sections that are proposed for the development, there may be maintenance issues in the future, but I would say in light of you already approving the rural road section, it doesn't probably make a whole lot of difference what the right-of-way width is.
And I just want to reconfirm, you said it, when you're in rural areas, this criteria doesn't...
It doesn't function well.
function. Oh, by recommendation,
Right.
it doesn't function. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair recognizes John. Oh,
Oh, go ahead. I can speak. One of the things I was going to ask was what the current was, but it's currently 49 feet. And I'm trying to figure out how they got 49 feet from the county, because usually it's like 36 feet, or that must have been done in your planned unit development, that you came up with the 49 feet? Or it came up with the design criteria for your
design.
drainage?
With the drainage, really, we're just trying to be consistent with what's already been approved out there. That's why we requested the 49 feet right away. Like Dale said, 1.5 feet on each side. You know, that is right away for us. You know, we feel like what's out there now is adequate. The 49 feet that we see in the existing phase 1 appears to be functioning and working as it was designed and approved. Again, it's just right away. It's not driving surface.
Yes, absolutely. And I can agree with that. And I can, there's no reason to really change it just because our design criteria says that. So I can definitely recommend that we waive this. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no motion on the floor. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
I make a motion to accept the appeal on behalf of Prairie Valley Development.
Second.
Thank you.
Modrick moves to accept the appeal. Roberts seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
So 4 in favor, 1 against. Richie Nordstrom votes against. So the motion passes. On to item 16.
Thank you.
Review Ridgeview Place subdivision, appeal of staff's decision on a vacation of easement continued from September 12th, 2017 with Public Works Committee. Yeah. Richie Nordstrom.
Madam Chair, the applicant has withdrawn the appeal, so I would like to move that we acknowledge that withdrawal of that appeal.
Okay. Nordstrom acknowledges the withdrawal, and with a second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Just hold on, just a moment. We have just one more thing.
Pardon me, this will just take a moment, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge and welcome our new planning director, Ken Young. Ken, do you want to just say a few words and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here just now for the second day and enjoy what I've seen so far and the people I've met so far, and I look forward to working with you folks.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Welcome to Rapid City, and we look forward to working together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank the committee for its time, and we stand adjourned.